Hey there, Ryan Reynolds here. It's a new year, and you know what that means. No, not the diet. Resolutions. A way for us all to try and do a little bit better than we did last year. And my resolution, unlike big wireless, is to not be a raging and raise the price of wireless on you every chance I get. Give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch.
$45 upfront payment required, equivalent to $15 per month. New customers on first 3-month plan only. Taxes and fees extra. Speed slower above 40 gigabytes on unlimited. See mintmobile.com for details.
Will the plebs still be angry if I call them proles?
Answer me this, answer me this.
When they've culled all the badgers, will they come for the moles?
Answer me this, answer me this. Helen and Ollie, answer me this.
Hello and welcome to episode 230.
Oh, didn't know you had a toothache. Would have given you a less crunchy dinner.
Oh.
I went there.
Retro.
Boom.
Oh, Doctor, I think I need glasses. You certainly do. This is a fish and chip shop.
Boom shakalaka do da ba da ba da.
I think I've come to the wrong place. Is this Russell Harty's laugh hour?
Now we've come to that point of the Answer Me This year, and indeed the calendar year.
What, where we've run out of things to say, so we resort to the worst jokes we know?
That's right. Mm-hmm. Where as sure as night follows day, our listeners will start asking questions about Halloween, particularly if they live in the States.
My question about Halloween is trick-or-treating not tantamount to blackmail?
Typically what people ask is, what costume should I wear?
Yeah,
although
if you can't think of a costume, stay in.
Yeah, you're not interested enough to do Halloween.
Yep.
We've had a slightly more specific Halloween-based costume question this year.
Oh, really?
Yes. It's from Patty from North Carolina, who says, this Halloween, I'm thinking of dressing up as Dorian Gray.
Well, okay.
But I'm torn between being Dorian himself, as in the sort of one walking around Society London.
Being all pretty.
Yeah. Or the demonic, maggot-infested painting version of his soul. I wish I could be both simultaneously, but I can't.
Yes, you can.
Yeah, again, lack of imagination, Patty.
Easy. You go as normal Dorian on the front, and then on the back, strap a big picture frame and, put a horrible mask on the back of your head of an ugly face.
So, Helen, answer me this. If you had to choose, would you rather be the youthful sexpot version of Dorian Gray or the mutilated corpse of his soul?
Obviously the latter, because otherwise you're just going as a good-looking man, and where's the fun in that?
Yeah, I think what I'd do is I'd be the ugly soul, and then I'd somehow represent the attic around my midriff, so you're sort of looking at it upside down, and then have a picture of a handsome man sort of round about my nether regions.
But I think you have to go as both, because if you're not expressing duality, then you're not really going as Dorian Gray, are you?
Moreover, I'd say if you're not expressing duality, you're not really expressing any character from a Victorian novel.
Yeah.
I'd say don't go as... obviously Jekyll and Hyde's an obvious one.
Don't go as Frankenstein and his monster.
Precisely so. Or anything from that era, because you're not doing it justice.
Don't go as Gladstone without going as Disraeli as well.
Don't go as one of the cities of the two cities without going as the other one.
Well, we're talking about Halloween nightmares. Here's a nightmare of a different kind from Marcus from London, who says, Ollie, answer me this. How do I get my mum to stop reading the Daily Mail?
I think bearing in mind that the entire combined marketing might of both the Daily Express and the Daily Telegraph have been struggling away to do exactly that and haven't succeeded, I don't think you're going to do much to dent it, Marcus. She obviously likes the Mail, and your one-man effort is futile.
Maybe she's happy with herself being both rather right-wing in her opinions and also very interested in intrusive photographs of celebrities on the beach, not looking their best. Maybe your mum likes to make herself feel better about her life by reading the columns of Liz Jones, one of the most tragic adult women in our country.
She is probably, like most women, just reading it for the female section, which is very good.
Well, they've got lots of articles about weight loss and fashion.
That's right.
And that's all we women are interested in. Huzzah!
So you could just probably, Marcus, go and interview some real women about their declining sex drive and how to diet and how to pack to go on holiday, and just repackage it for her in an old edition of the Mail and say that it's today's Mail. You don't have to keep buying it if you're worried about giving the company money.
Yeah, the other option is just to take away all of her small change. Well, here's a question from Sam, who says, I hate school photos.
All right.
Ollie, answer me this. Why do they take school photos when Sam has expressly said that he hates them? Sam also says, I went for a smouldering look this time.
I bet you did, Sam. No wonder you hate your school photos. You obviously like a dick in all of them.
The only one not facing the front because you're trying to get your best side like Mariah Carey.
They take school photos, Sam, because when you're older and you're no longer required to be in a school photo...
Beware of the power and beauty of your youth.
Exactly. You actually look a lot better than you think you do, and simultaneously you look truly horrendous in a comic way.
Do they mean the school photo where everyone in school has to stand on a very, very wobbly... What's that thing called? The thing with steps.
It's like a stage, isn't it? Really?
Stage, yeah, I'll take
Staging.
that. Yeah.
Do they mean
or
that?
what? What's
do they
the
mean that
alternative?
photo, or the one where you get your photo taken individually against a very bland background, and then you get
those.
several different sizes of the same picture in a grey cardboard fake leather look frame? The school offered my parents the purchase of all these exquisite headshots of me when I was young. My parents very rarely took them off, Nick, 'cause it was about 25 quid to get them. And
because they didn't want to frighten the neighbours when they came round.
yeah, and my mum said, why would I have the photos out? I remember what you look like. I see you every day.
Yeah, but actually she was wrong, wasn't she?
She doesn't remember what I look like. I came into her house once, she thought I was a burglar.
Tried to shoot you.
No, but I think, Alison, with the greatest respect to you, and I do like you as a woman, I think you're wrong on this matter, because I think the person to see it, actually, is not the parents at the time, but Helen now. That actually would be quite nice to have that picture of you now.
There is one out now. There just wasn't in the 20 years when I was living with my mum. But there were lots of pictures of the dogs who were a lot more photogenic. But I do have a picture of my niece Isabel, who is 6, that my brother gave me. And I can't work out whether he gave it to me because he thought it was funny that she looks like a tiny little businessman, or whether he actually thought it was cute.
I suppose that Sam actually doesn't mean the individual portraits. I think he means the group shot.
Okay.
Because if he really hated having his own picture taken so much, he could probably refuse to have an individual portrait done. You can't really get out of the school photo, can you?
Well, you could just hide. But what I found objectionable about it as well is they lined us up in height order, so every year it was just a reminder for us short people that we were the shortest in the school.
Yes, absolutely. And like you get kids who are sort of 13 sitting with the 7-year-olds at the front.
It's degrading!
It's just, that's bad for your cred, isn't it?
No one wants to sit cross-legged when they pass puberty.
But to answer the question head on, Sam, I think the reason that they take school photos, in a word, posterity, isn't it?
Oh, I was thinking you were going to say money spinner.
Well, no, there's that for the individual portraits, for trying to shift them off to the parents. But I think for the group shot, it is that I know it's hard to imagine, Sam, a world before Facebook, but in such times, people wanted something on their wall to remind themselves of what they looked like and what their friends looked like when they were 12.
But their face is so small there, it's interchangeable. Each of those years' pictures could be interchanged with another year as long as it was from the colour era and not the sepia era. And the only time you see them now is when someone's done a murder and that's the only photo they can get hold of and they've ringed them.
Yeah, that is true.
So here's a fun game, Sam. Why don't you get your school photo and ring the people you think that in 10 years' time will be arrested for murder?
Yeah, and perhaps one of them will end up being a celebrity, and then they can use the ringed photo in the menu at Planet Hollywood, which is the other place you see that technique being used.
Really?
Oh, who's this? Obviously Meg Ryan. Looks like Meg Ryan. There's no game here. Well, here's a question from Sophie from Middlesbrough, who says, Helen, answer me this. I can't believe she's asking you. How do I get to be in a One Direction video?
Don't worry, Sophie, I'll put some calls in. I am good friends with people nearly half my age.
Sophie says, it looks like the most fun thing ever.
Well, we just watched their new video. What's
Live
it called?
While We're Young.
Yeah, they're on a camping trip. Camping is not fun, even when it's in the glamping site that they're in, and I say that word with a great deal of disdain.
Yeah, I mean, actually, you're right, it's glamping in the sense that there's some kind of yurt, maybe, because it's got like
Bell
5
tents.
of them in it.
Bell tents.
Yeah, bell ends more like.
Big spacious bell tents.
But what it looks like is a sort of Christian youth camp
It
where
really does.
there's no alcohol allowed, but just out of shot, there's someone who's supposed to be responsible for looking after them, masturbating furiously.
For God's sake, they're in a paddling pool with all their clothes on.
It's got a very summery vibe, hasn't it? Whereas actually, they'd have absolutely been freezing their nads up.
But it's September that this is coming out. Why go for a summery vibe? Why not go for an autumnal one where they're having to identify different types of fallen leaf and go blackberrying?
Why not go for Men Not Boys, Helen? Because it sells. That's why.
Right.
Because tween sex sells.
One Direction are like a Muppet Babies version of the Rolling Stones.
But anyway,
Yeah. But anyway...
how to get into their music video. I know on good authority from my friend Che, who is in the Britney Spears Criminal video.
He really is.
Yes,
Genuinely is.
absolutely true.
Don't worry if you've never seen it, just watch the first 7 seconds. It's his face and Britney's shoulder.
That man is doing a PhD and he's in a Britney video.
He got in it really easily because he applied to an extras agency and they sort of categorise you, in his case, posh. So in the same way, basically, to be in a One Direction video, the look you're looking for is Hollister. Look like Hollister, look 16, and you will get in a One Direction music video if you try hard enough. But when you're there, it's a lot of standing around. And I don't think it's going to be that much fun.
Yeah, that's the thing about all filming. They're not having a good time. They're doing work. They're probably not even trawling for lady friends.
No, absolutely. I mean, they're going to be doing interviews, aren't they? And YouTube videos and God knows what in between takes. Liam's going to be getting his hair done for hours. You know, you're not going to have a chance to talk to them. You're probably asked not to talk to them.
They said it was raining as well when they filmed the video, and so you would have had to stand in a paddling pool wearing a small dress. and
Yeah, which would
jumping
be
up
cold.
and down. Well, after a few hours, I think the novelty would wear off jumping up and down in the rain.
Yes.
In a paddling pool with an inflatable hammer.
And where was it? Kent?
Kent, yes.
That's not a place you want to stand around in the cold, really, for a long time in wet clothes.
I spent 19 years of my life doing just that.
I've got a question.
Email your question to answermethispodcast@googlemail.com.
To answer me this podcast at googlemail.com.
To answer me this podcast at googlemail.com.
To answer me this podcast at googlemail.com.
So, retrospectors, what historical events are we ticking off on this week's run of Today in History?
On Monday, the anniversary of the day Ozzy Osbourne and a bat came face to face on stage.
On Tuesday, we go back to the future with a potted history of the DeLorean.
On Wednesday, why is the Pope guarded by those guys in floofy hats?
On Thursday, how the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame ended up in Cleveland.
And on Friday, was Henry VIII really an asshole, or was it just the result of a jousting accident?
We discuss this and more on Today in History with the Retrospectors. 10 minutes each weekday, wherever you get your podcasts.
Here's a question from Ronan, who says, I turned 18 last Friday.
Well done, you.
Happy birthday.
Yeah.
Enjoy voting when that comes around.
Which marks the 18th year I've shared a room with my brother, who is now 23.
Oh, boy.
That is too long to share a
Yeah,
room,
that's
isn't it?
very old, isn't it?
I've had to share a room with Martin for 10 years.
Yeah, that's harsh.
Can we not at least get bunk beds, Martin?
In the past few months, this has become unbearable.
Just the past few months. What was the secret for the previous
18
17 and a half years?
Yeah. I'm a neat freak, and he is completely messy and never helps out. Oh, you're the modern-day Lemon and Matto, aren't you?
I like the movies, and I like TV.
It seems anything he does grates on me a lot. Classic sitcom structure, this. Like how he enjoys farting loudly and laughing about it.
Why do you think he does that? If it didn't grate you, he wouldn't bother.
Exactly. The comedy lies in the reaction. When I fart by myself in bed, I don't even notice.
If a tree falls in the forest, etc.
Exactly. But when my girlfriend's there, hilarious.
Big reaction from the crowd.
He goes to bed at 8 o'clock, so I never get to use the room.
Well, you get to use it for sleeping, right?
Why would he go to bed at 8 o'clock?
Maybe he gets up at 4 because he's a postman.
I was just trying to work there. Yeah, that would have to be a really early shift, wouldn't it?
Maybe he's just very tired.
Maybe he's just got a lot of beans to eat so he can fart loudly in front of you for the rest of the day.
He does take it out of you.
So Helen, answer me this. What steps can be taken to avoid me smothering this fucker in his sleep?
Well, you could try and persuade him to move out.
I think you should both move out.
Yeah, but I think when you're 18...
You're too old.
Well, not anymore, because recession means that people are living with their parents when they're 45.
Yeah, well, that's it. Is this the future? In 10 years' time, Helen, are we going to be getting emails from people saying, I'm 45 and I'm still sharing a room with my brother who's 50?
Yeah, it's plausible.
The thing is, in the old days, when families used to live together like that,
You have to share a room with everyone.
that's what's missing, the community spirit here. You think you're entitled to your own space, Roden, whereas actually all you're being asked to do, all you're being asked to sacrifice, is a little bit of bedroom space with your brother.
Rather than drive him away, maybe you should start finding each other's company a joy. Now that you're 18 and he's 23, you're both adults. You can do things that you both enjoy, whereas when he was 18 and you were 13, there was more of a gap in mutual
It
activities.
sounds like they don't have that much in common unless he wants to get into some sort of competitive farting competition.
It's not very fair. All we know about Ronan's brother is that he's windy, and all we know about Ronan is that he's a neat freak and probably quite difficult to share a room with.
Yeah, sounds like you're at fault, Ronan, if anything.
I've got another idea. Persuade your parents to invest in a shed, a large one, that you can sleep in.
Oh, that'd get cold this time of year.
I know, but a friend of mine spent some of his best teenage years in the shed in the back of the garden.
Well, actually, I mean, it's not a bad idea. It's your choice, isn't it, to carry on living there? You can't be complaining the whole time. If the house isn't big enough, you've got to do something to change that.
Yeah, if not, just run away and join the Navy.
That's what my dad did.
Also, isn't it going to be a bit difficult if they go on the pool?
Well, apparently, in 23 years, that hasn't happened.
On that subject, here's a question from Sean from Bristol, who says, I am a 23-year-old man.
Oh, no, it's not. And he shares with his 18-year-old brother, who's also written into the show, is it?
That would be incredible. Who has just got together with a girl I care about.
Oh, well done.
And want to be with for a long time.
Yeah, well, play it by ear.
Good idea. Don't commit now, you're only 23.
Yeah.
However, due to circumstances beyond my control, I'm also living at home with my parents.
Loser.
See?
Loser.
No, but a lot of people have to, Ollie. It's very
Yeah.
difficult to get a job. My mother doesn't mind my girlfriend staying the night, but they do not want her to stay in my bedroom and would rather she stayed in the spare room. While I understand her reasoning, I am 23 years old And she did allow my sister to have boyfriends stay over in the same room when she was a younger age than me.
I like it that sibling rivalry does it, even at 23. But you let Clara stay with her boyfriend when she was 17.
It's usually the other way around. It's usually the oldest child that doesn't get the liberties, and then the youngest child,
exactly.
the rules have relaxed.
Yeah, absolutely.
So,
bucking the trend.
So Ollie, answer me this. Is my mother being slightly one-sided in this regard?
Well, obviously.
And how can I persuade her to allow my girlfriend to stay over in my room?
I think she knows she's being one-sided in this. If she allowed it in the past and she's not allowing it now, may I put to you humbly, Sean, the suggestion that maybe she wants you to leave? Or maybe she's bored of you living in this house. If she denies you any action, she knows that you're likely to move out.
Well, this is a new girl as well. And firstly, we've all been around new couples, and that's pretty nauseating and annoying, and they hump a lot.
Yeah.
You don't want that happening under your roof if you're a parent. And maybe she thinks only relationships of a certain tenure should be allowed to sleep in the same room. So maybe your sister's boyfriend had paid his dues and then was allowed to share the bed.
There's a simpler explanation.
She doesn't like your girlfriend.
She doesn't like your girlfriend.
She liked the boyfriend more. What happened to that nice Dave? I liked him.
Can't you be gay, Sean? He was great.
Why does God need both a staff and a rod? In the 23rd Psalm, and the founder being Romulus, ain't it odd? We don't call the city Rom. My knowledge is too slight, so I think I shall write. To answer me this podcast at googlemail.com.
So like One Direction, why don't you go crazy, crazy, crazy and give us a call with your questions on this phone number.
02081235877.
Or you can Skype Answer Me This, but we wouldn't recommend calling or Skyping whilst you're jumping up and down in a paddling pool, because it's likely you'll drop your smartphone and they're worth quite a lot of money these days.
Yeah.
Hello, this is Mark from Devon. Helen and Ollie, answer me this. I live in a damp part of the country in a damp house. I've recently bought a dehumidifier. I looked at it the other day and I got about 1.5 litres, 2 litres of water out in about 2 days. So, answer me this. Is it best for me to use the dehumidifier to get water for my house rather than paying the water bills, and then I can use it in the kettle and all sorts of drinking applications? It does have a silver filter in it to remove the bacteria, or so it says. So is this a healthy way to get water?
I like the way he says all sorts of drinking applications. What else is there apart from putting it into the kettle?
Drinking it.
Pouring it into the arm of the sofa and sucking it out through the fabric.
Mixing up my muscle shakes with it. Soda stream.
Cordial. Cup of soup.
The kettle probably would be the safest, presumably, because then at least the bacteria is being slightly knocked out by the heat.
Because although there is a filter in the dehumidifier, there's also a lot of crap that's going into your dehumidifier. There'll be microbes in it. There'll probably be some heavy metals from the dehumidifier components going into the water. And even if it's perfectly clean, the minerals have been taken out by the distillation process. So you're not actually getting the
is that right?
The virtues of normal water.
Is that
so
right?
Although you could drink it, probably won't taste that great.
Well, no, because it's got bits of damp wall and damp carpet in it as well, hasn't it? Which you're going to be tasting. A taste of plasterboard and mank.
And spores.
Why doesn't he put it in his toilet system?
Well, exactly. Why don't you? Or you can use it to water your plants as long as they're not edible plants.
I like both of those suggestions, actually. Yes, that's a very practical solution.
Yeah. Well, here's another watery question from Joe from Essex.
What are the chances?
Who says, Ollie, answer me this. When you take a piss on a cruise ship...
I've never been on a cruise ship, so I've never taken a piss on one.
Where does it go?
It's not a detail they feature in the ads, that, is it? They show the boy on the surfboard in the jacuzzi, don't they, on the decking, but they don't show him taking a piss and where it goes. Why is that?
They show a room that has obviously been photoshopped to look a lot more spacious and to have a view rather than a view of an internal corridor.
Yes, which I don't really understand, because I know that you're buying the ship, so you're buying the room and the features rather than the places you're going to, but it is a cruise. The point of a cruise is you go to places.
Yeah, well, no, it's not. The point of the cruise is you look at the Atlantic Ocean for a week.
It's just, I mean, why don't they show pictures? You know, you're going to the Caribbean, you're going to the Greek islands, and instead, you're going on a surfboard in a jacuzzi. What are you going to do that for a week and a half?
Well, I suppose they're saying to people, look, it's going to be just like you're in a resort in some no-name place, and then you get to look at the Acropolis.
Isn't it a sort of interchangeability thing, so they can use the same advert whether it's Caribbean or the fjords or Mediterranean?
Antarctic.
Titanic Memorial Cruise, there's always the surfboard in the jacuzzi. Well, the answer is, I have to say, Joe, pretty much as I would have expected, but if you haven't got the intellectual might to work this out for yourself, this is how it goes.
Do you have to piss off the side of the ship?
No. There are 2 tanks.
Is it one for men and one for women?
No.
Is it one for the dancing Irish people and one for the upper class?
One is called grey water and one is called black water.
Black water? That sounds like the name of a horror film.
Yes, and from that insinuation you can guess what's in the black water.
Is there a horror film set in the sewage tank of a cruise ship?
No, but there should be. And the grey water tank, that's the water that comes from places like the showers and the running taps.
And the laundry, presumably
Yes.
there is one.
Yeah, exactly. So I presume that the grey water might get recycled a couple of times before it gets dumped. But basically, they both get chemically treated, hopefully with something that's environmentally friendly, and then, as one might expect, get dumped in God's big toilet, the sea.
Yay! Out of sight,
happy.
out of mind.
Except the dolphins who are swimming in shit.
Isn't that lovely? You can excrete some water, and then the next day you could be taking a holiday on it.
I don't know about you, listeners, but sometimes I reach the end of a podcast with a wanton craving for more. In such moments, I confess I have recourse to the Answer Me This app on the iPhone and, additionally, in times of dire need, Android, upon which I have indulged in the weekly bonus material and over 3 hours of best bits.
That's right, it's a question of court. And it's from Gemma, who says, Helen, answer me this. How on earth do you get a job as a court artist?
Apparently most of them are freelance, and the way that you do it is just send your portfolio of portraits to news organisations, because they need to know that you can draw people, or you go and hang around in a lot of courtrooms, make friends with the journalists, suggest yourself.
You know, that had never actually occurred to me that it's the news organisations that hire the artist rather than the court. I sort of assumed there's like an official court artist, like a poet laureate or something.
No.
I wonder when you submit your illustrations to say that you could be a convincing and credible court artist, whether you're actually, instead of those caricatures of Leonardo DiCaprio and Rowan Atkinson, maybe you actually submit drawings of people that you've taken, perhaps from your own family, but you've made them look like a rapist somehow.
Or you've put a judge's wig on them.
Yes, absolutely,
Yeah. I think if you want to become a court artist, just ask the people that you know to stand pointing very dramatically at things so you can draw them, wearing lawyers' clothes. This is a weird thing. Court artists aren't allowed to draw in the court.
You're kidding.
Wow.
They go into the court, they're allowed to take notes, but they're not allowed to sketch, and then they have to go outside and do the drawing. And I don't know why that is. Presumably it'd be distracting if they had an easel and a load of pencils dropping on the floor.
Now, I always imagine from the court illustrations that there's a lot of wood panelling in English courtrooms.
Tons.
But I wonder if there always is, or whether that's just almost like a sort of stylistic flourish. Because sometimes surely it's a modern courtroom, but it never looks like one in the drawings, does it?
But when I was doing jury service, it was a modern courtroom, and it had all the wood panelling. Maybe it is just how they feel a court should look. You know, there can't be that many courtroom architects, and maybe they're quite small C conservative.
Yes, I think they probably are. I suppose you're right. If you went to trial for murder and it was in a new courtroom and the architect had really had some fun, like put the witness stand 20 foot up in the air or something with lasers coming out of it.
Maybe some pictures of Winnie the Pooh.
Yeah, you'd feel a bit like you were in one of the boring scenes in one of the later Star Wars movies, wouldn't you?
But at least I'd have something to look at.
Yeah, true.
Here's a question from Megan from Pittsburgh, who says, my fiancé is a fit guy with a nice upper body build. Photos, please, Megan. But he has no interest in showing it off. Rather, she says, he wears oversized floppy clothing, medium or large, when he's obviously a small.
Oh, right.
Because he's uncomfortable revealing that he's on the slender side and not a bulkier, average-sized guy.
Oh, what does that say about America, Megan? That the bulkier size is considered to be the average size? Too much food.
I've told him several times that he should wear properly fitted clothing since he'd look quite good in it, but he still buys excessively large attire.
See, that is irritating. He's probably the reason that every time I go to Bicester Village I can only get something that's small or medium, because the people who are actually small or medium buy large and extra large, which is what I need.
Oh, selfish.
Exactly.
This guy's selfish. Don't marry him.
He's making me look ridiculous in tiny clothes.
I think a lot of people buy clothes that don't really fit them properly, though. I think it's a very common problem. Like Martin always buys shoes that are too small for him because he has foot dysmorphia. As Megan says, he still buys excessively large attire, so Ollie, answer me this. What can I do to convince him to start wearing properly sized clothing and, God forbid, maybe get a tailored suit for the wedding and thereafter?
Surely he'll wear a tailored suit for the wedding. He's not going to be like, no, I actually want to look like I'm drowning in a suit.
Tell you what, I'm just going to wear my pyjamas.
Yeah.
Baggy clothes are unflattering to people that are big because they make you look bigger, and to small people because you look like you're wearing clothes you haven't grown into yet. There are two solutions, and one of them is expensive, and that is to take him to a tailor and buy it for him, or take him to one of those department stores where they go and pick clothes for him because they're unlikely to pick clothes that are massive.
That's clever, yes.
The other solution is cheap, and that is to show him pictures of Joseph Gordon-Levitt. He's a small man.
Yeah.
And he's always wearing very well-tailored clothes, looking a proper Bobby Dazzler. He wears clothes well, and he's a tiny man. Or Aaron Paul from Breaking Bad. Contrast Aaron Paul in the show where he's wearing massive droopy T-shirts, as it sounds like your fiancée is, Megan.
Right.
And then him when he's doing red carpet events where he's wearing very natty suits.
I mean, what you're suggesting here is that Megan essentially prints off a massive brief full of comparative photos so that he can get a full understanding of the depth of the situation.
Make a paper doll of your fiancé, then make the two sizes of clothes, and then he can see which is more flattering. But I do wonder about people dressing their partners. Does one have the right to dictate what your partner looks like? Sure, you might want them to look their best, but is it for you to decide what their best is?
Yeah, I think it's fine so long as you haven't entered into the relationship with that being the end goal, like some sort of weird Neil LaBute movie. If you've said right at the beginning, I'm going to make him look like Aaron Paul, that's weird.
It's generally good advice to make your relationship nothing like a Neil LaBute film.
Anyway, isn't it quite nice, Megan, to know that, he looks like a bit of a slob, but underneath it, he's buff and fit. Isn't that a little present that you can unwrap in the evening that's your little secret?
Yeah, exactly.
It's like when girls have surprisingly large boobs. That's great. You don't want everyone knowing and looking down their chest all the time. It's like, these boobs are mine.
You've got your own boobs.
Yeah, it's not enough for me.
Please send us an email. We love to keep in touch. If you send us an email, we'll like you very much. It's
answermethispodcast@googlemail.com.
That's
answermethispodcast@googlemail.com.
So please send us an email, or we won't know you're there. And if we like your email, we'll read it out on air.
Time for a question from Madeline from Sydney, Australia, who says, I've made it to a quarter century.
Yay!
Birthdays all round at Answer This Towers this week.
A lot of young adults in today's show.
Yeah. It's my 25th today, and I was, when she sent this, which obviously isn't today by the time you're listening to it, and I was very excited when I unwrapped my first present from my partner, and it was an Answer Me This mug.
Not to be self-aggrandising, but those mugs are brilliant.
Yeah.
They're massive, and I've had one in service for 5 years, not a chip on it.
In fairness, we make very little money out of selling our merch. Literally, we make about 10p each.
We don't put much markup on because the base price is so expensive already.
So genuinely, we can say they are a good mug. Honestly, they are.
No conflict of interest. We just want you to have the best mugs you can.
It is a good mug. Anyway, I have the day off uni today, Madeline continues. But all my friends have to work, so I'm spending my birthday alone.
Balloons for one.
I've decided to lock myself up in my flat all day.
That's a bit repulsion, isn't it?
And indulge in 3 of my favourite activities. Hello.
Whoa.
Hanging out with my cat.
Ollie Man, tick.
Oh, yes. Listening to back-to-back episodes of Answer Me This.
Ollie Man, tick.
And doing a jigsaw puzzle.
Oh, you hate that.
I'd honestly rather be in solitary confinement than doing jigsaws all day.
Well, she is in solitary confinement.
Effectively.
It's just that it's brought on by herself.
So, Helen, answer me this. What is your most memorable birthday, and why?
Well, it probably wasn't the one where I did jigsaws by myself, but I'm sure there were a couple of those when I was in my tweens.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry, I got a lump in my throat. I just felt emotional for you, Helen.
Oh, I had a good
saw
time.
right through your eyes into your soul there.
Yeah, and it's in 400 pieces. Well, on my 30th birthday, Martin proposed, so I suppose I remember that.
Yeah, it's in your top 10, isn't it?
It's in my top 30.
Yes, I think that's reasonable.
And then on my 31st birthday, it was the day before our wedding, so I remember that because I was very, very busy making food for the wedding and stuff.
Martin, memorable birthdays?
My 25th, I was on a flight back from Tallahassee in Florida, having had a thoroughly miserable time. That was pretty bad.
Why was it so miserable?
You pretty much had a breakdown, didn't you?
Yeah, I was just dealing with magnets and the remnants of my PhD.
And
we've all been there.
And you'd been sharing a room. As we've learnt in this show, that is a pathway to misery
Yeah,
with
that
a
was
colleague.
not good. That was sharing a room with a colleague, and
What, in a kind of William Hagen assistant kind of way, or in a perfectly reasonable way?
It's fairly platonic.
Right. I had a good run of birthdays in my teens. For my 17th, I went to see the international premiere of Beauty and the Beast the musical.
Wow.
Yeah, but it was the first night.
Who did you have to blow to go to that?
Not my dad. He got the tickets.
Okay.
I don't know who he had to blow. But it was a proper celeb party, which I'd obviously never been to before, at the Natural History Museum. It was all lit up in purple. Bob Geldof was there.
Ooh.
Yeah. And then for my 18th, I went to see an Ocean Colour Scene gig.
They don't remember being an Ocean Colour Scene.
And then on my 19th, I went to a casino in Zimbabwe.
Wow!
So, I mean, that was quite a trajectory. Theatre, rock and roll gig, casino in a developing country. Now, if you've had a memorable birthday, and if you too would like an Answer Me This mug to celebrate it, all the details of how you can tell us about that birthday, and indeed how you can buy that mug, are to be found on our website.
AnswerMeThisPodcast.com. There's a link to our Superstore, or there are just all of our contact details listed, so you can get in touch via email or phone or Skype, should you wish to.
There are also, of course, links so that you can buy our first 120 episodes of the show.
Or our Sports Day and Jubilee-themed albums.
And links to follow us on Facebook and Twitter as well. Do that, send us questions.
We've given you everything, and now we're asking for questions back.
That's right, it's reasonable, that's the exchange.
It's all right, yeah.
Yeah, and we'll see you next week.
Bye!
Bye.